I still remember the day it happened. The corporate office was buzzing with the usual Monday morning energy. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing, and the distant hum of the copy machine working overtime. The fluorescent lights cast that familiar sterile glow over our open floor plan, where glass-walled meeting rooms stood like aquariums filled with suits instead of tropical fish. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing the quarterly marketing report that was due by the end of the day, when I caught a glimpse of him walking toward the break room. Alex Miller had been working at Davidson & Associates for about 8 months longer than me. He was tall, the kind of tall that made him slightly duck when passing through doorways, with broad shoulders that filled out his tailored suits perfectly. His dark brown hair was always neatly styled, with just enough product to keep it in place without looking artificial. And his eyes, a warm hazel that seemed to shift between green and brown depending on the light, had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when he spoke to you. We developed a comfortable friendship over the past year, the kind where we'd grab lunch together occasionally and chat about weekend plans at the coffee machine. I knew he was straight. He'd mentioned an ex-girlfriend once or twice, and I'd firmly placed him in the work friend category in my mind. Despite the occasional daydream I couldn't quite control. Being one of the few openly gay employees in our department, I was careful about maintaining professional boundaries, especially with straight colleagues. Let me explain why this matters. In corporate America, navigating workplace relationships is complicated enough without adding the layer of being a sexual minority. Every interaction carries this subtle weight of representation. It's like being an unofficial ambassador for an entire community, where your actions might shape how others view gay professionals. This added pressure makes you second-guess normal workplace friendships and wonder if your friendliness might be misinterpreted or if your attraction to someone might make them uncomfortable. It's exhausting sometimes, this constant calibration of behavior. That particular Monday was different because our team was presenting the new marketing strategy to the executive board. The pressure was immense. Our department's budget for the next fiscal year depended on this presentation. Alex was leading the pitch, and I'd been working closely with him to prepare the data visualizations and supporting materials. We'd spent late nights at the office the previous week, ordering takeout and fine-tuning every slide until they were perfect. The morning of the presentation, the tension in the office was palpable. People were moving faster, speaking in hushed, urgent tones, and the coffee machine worked overtime. I spotted Alex in the conference room an hour before the meeting, practicing his talking points with such intense focus that he didn't notice me watching from the doorway. He looked uncharacteristically nervous, pacing back and forth, adjusting his navy blue tie repeatedly. "Need a pep talk?" I asked, finally stepping into the room. Alex looked up, startled, then smiled with visible relief. "James, thank God. Is this tie straight? I feel like it's crooked, but every time I fix it, it looks worse." I approached him, assessing the situation. "It's fine, but you've got it a bit too tight. You look like you're about to pass out." I reached up instinctively to adjust it, then stopped myself, suddenly aware of the personal nature of the gesture. "May I?" He nodded, tilting his chin up slightly. I loosened the knot just enough to look professional while allowing him to breathe. The moment felt strangely intimate, my fingers working near his throat, the faint scent of his cologne, something woodsy with hints of citrus, and the slight rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. I stepped back quickly, clearing my throat. "Better?" I asked, my voice sounding oddly strained even to my own ears. "Much. Thanks." He rolled his shoulders back, looking more at ease. "I don't know why I'm so nervous. It's not my first presentation. It's your first one with the entire executive board," I reminded him. "And with the CEO flying in specifically to hear it. Anyone would be nervous." The presentation itself was a roller coaster. Alex started strong, his voice confident and his gestures natural as he outlined our strategy for expanding into the European market. The executives were engaged, nodding along, until about halfway through when the CFO, Margaret Wilson, notorious for her brutal questioning, began poking holes in our financial projections. I watched as Alex's confidence visibly wavered. He tugged at his tie, which had somehow tightened again during his presentation. His responses became less fluid, and he glanced at me with a look that clearly said, "Help me." When it was my turn to present the data section, I subtly steered the conversation back to our strengths, addressing some of Margaret's concerns while highlighting the market research that supported our strategy. By the end of the 2-hour meeting, we'd managed to salvage the presentation, but it wasn't the home run we'd hoped for. The executives filed out with non-committal murmurs about considering our proposals, and Alex looked defeated. He remained seated at the conference table after everyone else had left, staring at his notes. I closed the door to give us some privacy. It wasn't that bad, I offered, sitting beside him. It was a disaster, he groaned, loosening his tie with a frustrated tug. Margaret eviscerated me. I blanked on the Berlin market figures. And I'm pretty sure I started sweating visibly when the CEO asked about the 5-year projection. But you recovered, I pointed out. And the CEO seemed impressed with the competitive analysis. That was all you. Alex sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up in a way that made him look younger and strangely more approachable. I need a drink. Or 10. He looked at me, a small smile finally breaking through. Want to help me with the rest of this? He gestured to his tie, which was now hanging loosely around his neck. There was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. Vulnerability, certainly, but something else too. Something that made my heart beat a little faster. What do you mean? I asked, genuinely confused. I mean, help me forget about this presentation disaster. Let's grab drinks after work. I need to decompress, and honestly, you're the only person I can stand to be around right now. The invitation caught me off guard. We'd never socialized outside of work events before. Sure, I heard myself saying before I could overthink it. I know a good place a few blocks from here. The rest of the workday dragged on endlessly. I tried to focus on finalizing the quarterly report, but my mind kept drifting to the evening ahead. I reminded myself repeatedly that this was just 2 colleagues unwinding after a stressful day, nothing more. Alex was straight. He was just being friendly. I was reading too much into a simple invitation. At 6:30, I found Alex waiting by the elevator, his suit jacket draped over his arm and his tie stuffed into his pocket. He'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. It was the most casual I'd ever seen him at work, and somehow it made him even more attractive. Ready to drown our sorrows? He asked with a half smile. The bar I'd chosen was a small, dimly lit place called The Hideaway. Not exactly a gay bar, but known for being LGBTQ friendly. It was quiet enough for conversation, but lively enough to avoid awkward silences. We found a booth in the corner and ordered whiskeys. To surviving Margaret's interrogation, Alex said, raising his glass. To living to present another day, I responded, clinking my glass against his. The alcohol helped dissolve the remaining tension from the day. 1 drink turned into 2, and our conversation flowed easily from work to more personal topics. I learned that Alex had grown up in a small town in Oregon, played college baseball until a shoulder injury ended his athletic aspirations, and had an older sister who was an environmental lawyer in Seattle. He asked about my family, and I told him about growing up in Chicago with parents who had always been supportive of my sexuality, even when I was still figuring it out myself. When did you know? He asked after a thoughtful pause. That you were gay, I mean. If that's not too personal. I considered the question, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. I think I always knew on some level, but I didn't have the language for it until middle school. I officially came out when I was 16. I looked at him curiously. Why do you ask? Alex shrugged, his eyes fixed on his drink. Just curious. I've always wondered how people figure these things out about themselves. How they know for sure. There was something in his tone that made me pay closer attention. Most people just know, I said carefully. But for some, it's more complicated. Sexuality can be fluid for a lot of people. He nodded, still not meeting my eyes. I've been thinking a lot lately about assumptions. The ones we make about ourselves and others. My heart was suddenly pounding in my chest. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? I didn't want to misinterpret and make things awkward, so I kept my response neutral. Questioning assumptions is usually healthy. Helps us grow. The conversation shifted to safer topics after that, but something had changed in the atmosphere between us. There was a new awareness, an electric undercurrent that hadn't been there before. When Alex reached for the check at the same time I did, our hands brushed, and neither of us pulled away immediately. The contact lasted only seconds, but it felt significant. Outside the bar, the evening air was cool and refreshing after the warmth of the whiskey and the intimacy of our conversation. We stood on the sidewalk somewhat awkwardly, neither of us quite ready to say goodnight. Which way are you headed? Alex asked, Uptown. I'm on 83rd in Amsterdam. I'm downtown, but I could walk you to the subway. It was such a small gesture, but it felt meaningful. We walked side by side, our shoulders occasionally brushing, talking about nothing important but enjoying each other's company. At the subway entrance, we paused. "Thanks for tonight," Alex said. "I needed this more than I realized." "Anytime," I replied, meaning it. He hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged me. A brief, masculine embrace with a couple of pats on the back, but it sent my pulse racing nonetheless. As he pulled away, his face was close to mine, and for a wild moment, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he squeezed my shoulder and stepped back. "See you tomorrow, James." I rode the subway home in a daze, replaying every moment of the evening in my mind. Was I imagining things, or had something shifted between us? Was Alex trying to tell me something about his sexuality? Or was I projecting my own feelings onto innocent comments and friendly gestures? The next day at work was surreal. Alex greeted me with a coffee, remembering exactly how I took it, and a warm smile that seemed to hold a secret. Throughout the day, I caught him looking at me across the office more than usual. During our team meeting, he chose the seat next to mine, and his leg pressed against mine under the table. These could all be coincidences, I told myself, but they felt deliberate. 3 days passed with this new, charged dynamic between us. We didn't discuss our bar conversation, but something had undeniably changed. Our interactions were filled with lingering glances and casual touches that didn't feel casual at all. I was driving myself crazy trying to interpret every interaction, afraid to hope, but unable to stop myself. On Friday afternoon, I was working late, finishing a report that was due Monday. Most of the office had cleared out for the weekend when Alex appeared at my desk. "Still here?" he asked, leaning against the cubicle wall. He'd removed his tie again, and the top buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing the hollow of his throat. "Just wrapping up?" I said, trying to keep my eyes on my computer screen and not on the exposed skin of his neck. "You heading out?" "Actually, I was wondering if you wanted to grab dinner. There's this new Thai place I've been wanting to try." My heart skipped. This felt different from our impromptu drinks, more intentional, more like a date. "I'd like that," I said, trying to sound casual while my pulse raced. The restaurant was intimate, with low lighting and small tables that forced us to sit close together. We ordered several dishes to share, and as the evening progressed, the conversation turned personal again. "I haven't been completely honest with you," Alex said suddenly, after we'd finished our main courses. My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. He's noticed my attraction and wants to let me down gently. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. Alex took a deep breath. "Remember at the bar when I asked about how you knew you were gay? I wasn't just making conversation." He stared into his water glass as if it held the words he was struggling to find. "I've been questioning things about myself lately. Specifically, about who I'm attracted to." I held my breath, afraid to say anything that might stop him from continuing. "I've always identified as straight," he went on. "I've only dated women. But lately, I've been having these feelings. For you specifically." He finally looked up at me, his expression a mix of vulnerability and determination. "I don't know exactly what that means yet. Maybe I'm bisexual. Maybe it's just you. But I know I'm attracted to you, and I've been driving myself crazy trying to figure out how to tell you." The world seemed to stop for a moment. All the background noise of the restaurant faded away, and all I could see was Alex, looking at me with those honest hazel eyes, waiting for my response. "I'm attracted to you too," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Have been for a while. But I never thought you'd be interested." The relief on his face was immediate and beautiful. "I didn't either, until recently. This is all new territory for me, James. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, and I can't promise I won't mess up. But I'd like to explore this, whatever it is between us." "I'd like that too," I said, unable to stop the smile spreading across my face. We didn't kiss that night. Instead, we walked through the city for hours, talking about everything and nothing, our hands occasionally brushing until finally, Alex took mine in his. It was a small gesture, but in the middle of Manhattan, it felt brave and significant. The following weeks were a delicate dance of discovery. We kept things professional at work, but spent most evenings and weekends together, slowly building something that felt both exciting and surprisingly comfortable. Alex was thoughtful about his journey, reading about bisexuality and talking openly about his questions and fears. I tried to be patient, remembering my own coming out process and how confusing it had been. Our first kiss happened 3 weeks after that dinner, on my couch, while watching a movie neither of us can now remember. It was tentative at first, then growing in confidence as we realized how right it felt. Alex pulled back, looking into my eyes with wonder. "I should have known something was different when you fixed my tie that day," he said with a soft laugh. "No one else has ever made me feel so nervous and so comfortable at the same time." Navigating a relationship with a coworker had its challenges, especially since Alex was still figuring out his sexuality and wasn't ready to be out at work. We were careful, professional during office hours, though sometimes I'd catch him looking at me during meetings with a small, secret smile that made my heart race. 4 months into our relationship, the company announced a restructuring. Alex was promoted to lead the international marketing team, a position that would require frequent travel but also meant he would no longer be in my direct department. The change gave us more freedom to be open about our relationship at work. On his last day in our department, Alex wore the same navy blue tie he'd been wearing during that fateful presentation. As we gathered for his small going-away celebration in the conference room, he pulled me aside. "Remember this?" he asked, fingering his tie with a smile. "How could I forget? It's where this all started." "I was thinking," he said, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Now that we won't be working together directly, maybe it's time I properly asked you to help me with the rest of this." He tugged at his tie playfully. I raised an eyebrow, trying not to laugh. "That was terrible." "I know," he grinned. "But seriously, James, these past few months have been amazing. I've never felt more like myself than when I'm with you. I love you." It was the first time he'd said those words, and hearing them in the very conference room where our story began felt perfectly right. "I love you too," I replied, not caring who might overhear. Later that night, in the privacy of my apartment, Alex did ask me to help with his tie and everything else he was wearing. As I loosened the silk fabric from around his neck, I couldn't help but think about how a simple request in a moment of vulnerability had led us here. How one brave question had changed everything. It's been 2 years now since that day when my straight coworker loosened his tie and asked for my help. Alex doesn't identify as straight anymore. He's comfortable calling himself bisexual, though he often says he prefers to think of himself as James sexual when he's being particularly cheesy. We moved in together last spring, and he proposed last month during a weekend trip to Oregon, where he introduced me to his family. Sometimes I think about how many moments of connection we miss in life out of fear or assumption. How many relationships never begin because we're afraid to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to question what we think we know about ourselves. I'm grateful every day that Alex found the courage to loosen his tie, literally and figuratively, and let me see the real person underneath. And I'm even more grateful that he asked for my help with the rest. Total _char_count. 18,871.